We are into the final minutes at Wembley. Southampton so close to a return to the Premier League. They lead Leeds by a goal to nil. Alex Neil has been watching all afternoon for us, but once again in the closing stages, Leeds and Dan James going close.
Yeah, it was just a sort of cut back at the edge of the box. He strikes it really well with his right foot. You'd expect the goalkeeper to save it. McCarthy going down to his left-hand side. But yeah, I think that's the second save he's made throughout the whole game. His first one was in the 7th minute. So I think it shows you how little Leeds have actually tested them. Yeah,
and that is what you'd say for all the attacking options that they have, both those that have already been replaced, those that are on the pitch now, that they just haven't done enough. They haven't worked Alex McCarthy enough through the course of the afternoon.
No, Leeds will be disappointed. I don't think there's any doubts about that. I think the likes of Rutter and Pirro in particular haven't carried enough of a threat in the game. And I think that first goal's proved to be really crucial.
Yeah, we sort of said it right at the start of the afternoon, didn't we, that so many tense, tight playoff finals in recent years decided by the odd goal, and this has been another of them.
Yeah, what it's allowed is it's allowed Southampton to control the game without having to expose themselves, really. You know, because they've been really comfortable. They haven't controlled the ball anywhere near as much as they normally do, but they've controlled the game, apart from probably that one moment of brilliance for James where he cracks underside of the bar. But other than that, really, Leeds haven't done enough.
Some of the Southampton fans daring to celebrate, others still looking concerned. Leeds fans looking pretty distressed, and it looks as though a similar tale will continue, Alex, that another playoff final and another defeat.
Yeah, unfortunately for Leeds, I think that Southampton have got the edge in the game, and it looks likely, unless something dramatic happens between now and the final whistle, that Southampton should see the game out. This is probably their last opportunity. Oh, it gets cleared.
Still maybe the odd second. The board for 9 went up while there was still some treatment actually going on for Kyle Walker-Peters and Dan James. We talked for you personally as a manager about that nerves. These must be the worst moments for Russell Martin now. You're just hoping that everyone just is responsible for the final few seconds.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, the worst one's probably Daniel Farke right now, because you feel helpless and you know you need that goal and you're hoping somebody's going to produce a moment of magic somewhere, but it looks as if it's slowly slipping away.
Southampton over the course of the 90, would you say it's been, we know what they're capable of in terms of exciting football, scoring a lot of goals, but it's been a professional performance actually this afternoon?
Yeah, Southampton would without doubt played a hell of a lot better than they have today, but they've done what they've needed to do to get the edge in the final and see it through.
And the other thing you would say as well is that often so many big cup finals, whether it's playoffs, Champions League, whatever it is, are decided by a moment in terms of a lethal goal scorer, and that is what Southampton do have in Adam Armstrong.
Yeah, I think the difficulty you've got when it comes to these finals is the fact that nobody cares how you play. All the people remember is who wins. Do you know what I mean? So Southampton, albeit they want to play nice football and they want to play in a certain manner, they'll be more concerned with who wins the game, and it looks as if they're likely to win this one.
Yeah, time is ticking away, and I think Illan Meslier was getting a little bit frustrated that Joe Aribo was clearly trying to waste a bit of time, but you would think there is probably one more clearance. This might be it, you would think.
Yeah, I think this ball's going to go forward, and either they'll get something off it or it'll get cleared and the game will be over.
It goes from Meslier, headed away.
Yeah, game's over. Clearance.
That is it then, and Southampton and Adam Armstrong celebrate. He is the match winner. He wheels his shirt around his head, and Southampton are back in the Premier League at the first time of asking. They have beaten Leeds United at Wembley, whose playoff curse continues, and Adam Armstrong's first half goal, he took it well, as he has been throughout the course of this championship season, and Russell Martin celebrates. All of Southampton celebrates. They join Leicester City and Ipswich Town back in the Premier League. And for someone who has been there, Alex Neil, and for someone who knows Russell Martin, try and encapsulate his emotions right now.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, he'll be trying to take it all in. Certainly the first time I did it with Norwich, you think you take it all in until you actually look back and it becomes a blur. So at the moment, he'll be ecstatic, really, with his team. Obviously started the season in a difficult moment, had a lot of churn with the squad, and then they had an unbelievable patch. Seemed to falter towards the end of the season, but I can assure you now, the way he feels right now, it'll all be worth it.
Yeah, and again, we spoke about it. You said before the match that you fancied Southampton to beat Leeds, and it has proven that over 3 matches this season, which you think is probably fair. If Leeds lose to Southampton 3 times, Southampton deserve their place in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think Southampton have had Leeds' number this season. I think the way that Russell sets up his teams, I think if you're Leeds, you've got to be really good against the ball, and I think that's been a bit of their undoing, really.
We've seen some heartbreak for Leeds, some tears on the field at Wembley. I suppose even if you lose a playoff final, what you want to say at the end of the day is we did ourselves justice, and Leeds United haven't today in terms of how little they've managed to create over the course of the game.
I think that'll be the biggest frustration for the club, for the fans, for the players, is the fact that if you walk away from the game having played really well, you can still lose games, that can happen, but certainly for what Leeds have sort of produced this season, and they have been unbelievable at times in terms of really, really good. I thought the semi-final second leg against Norwich, they were terrific, but today's certainly been underwhelming for them.
You spoke about how maybe you forget certain things in the aftermath of a moment like that, but can you remember turning to that sea of yellow and green for the first time and the amount of pride that personally gave you on a day like today?
Yeah, and when you do it as a coach, you feel as if you do it for everybody else. You know, you do it for your players, you do it for the fans, you see how much joy that it brings to everybody. And I'll never forget, I think the CEO at the time, David McNally, said to me, "Well done, you've just changed your life." And bear in mind, a year before that, I was managing in Scotland with Hamilton. So going from that to the Premier League just showed how things can change so quickly.
Over the course of the season, Southampton players who've stood out, who've really played their part. Obviously, we've talked about Adam Armstrong, the key of having a lethal goal scorer, but others that have stood out for you?
I think Will Smallbone, having worked with him before, has been terrific for them. I think Flynn Downs has been a massive signing for them as well in terms of controlling the middle of the pitch. I think the record with and without Flynn Downs shows you how sort of pivotal he can be. And I think spine's key, isn't it? You've got Armstrong, the goal scorer, two solid midfield players, and I think Bednarak and Stevens as a centre-back pairing, along with Haywood Bayliss, have been excellent for them.
As well, in contrast with Leeds, you already start to sort of think and worry as to what that squad might look like come the start of next season, because you often see, and maybe you felt as a manager yourself with Norwich, that if I don't get up now, a lot of these really good players are going to be gone come August.
Yeah, it's difficult because you're going to have the financial implications of the team having to understand that they're in the Championship for a further season. Naturally, there's going to be cuts in cost because the money isn't obviously coming in as much as it was when you were in the Premier League, and that does have an impact on the team. So I think Leeds will go away, they'll obviously be really disappointed, they'll have to regroup over the summer, and I'm sure there'll be changes to the squad for the start of next season.
Let's go back to Southampton then, and Russell Martin, and you know to your peril that Championship managers' shelf life gets shorter and shorter almost by the season. And go back to September, Sunderland 5, Southampton 0, Southampton 1, Leicester 4, Southampton 0, Ipswich 1, Middlesbrough 2, Southampton 1. You would get some owners at some clubs, I know that was early in the season, who already then would have had their finger on the trigger, but they stuck with Russell Martin, they stuck with the plan, and this is where it gets you.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was saying earlier in regards to changing management. It can be so easy for teams at times, but I think sometimes if you stick to the plan, stick to the process, then you're hoping that there's going to be riches and sort of success to come. And I think Southampton, to be fair to them, being a team that's just been relegated for the Premier League with the squad that they had, to suffer those defeats at that point, I thought took a really brave decisions to stick with Russell. I'm sure Russell will admit that, but this is now the outcome.
Is it difficult? Do we sometimes underestimate how difficult that transition is from going from the Premier League down to the Championship? And sometimes teams, Southampton were a prime example last season, used to becoming losers, losing every game, every week, and you suddenly have to try and, I don't know whether you do things in pre-season, to try and change the morale around and become a group of winners again.
Yeah, listen, it is a bit cliche in football, but winning or losing does become a habit. Do you know what I mean? You see teams that continually fight relegation every year, and it's hard to break that cycle. But equally, if you can get them regrouped, you can keep the core of your squad who you think's want to fight for the shirt and fight for you and fight for the club, and then you bring in and you add bits and pieces to that, you can have a really successful season, and I think Southampton have been a great example of that this year.
Just seen some shots on the monitor there of Russell Martin with a huge big fist pump. It looks to me like he's got tears in his eyes. Obviously all that you taught him when you worked with him, Alex, to get to this moment here. But is one of those where I guess you probably look on as someone who's worked with him, and you want him to succeed when you see him going to MK Dons and Swansea and now here, that you want him to be a top manager, and now he's a Premier League manager.
Yeah, of course. I think whenever you work with people, and what you need to bear in mind is Russell was my captain at Norwich, and we achieved a promotion together. And I don't think that the bonds are ever broken with the players that you do that with. So naturally, I want to see him succeed, and I'm delighted for him and delighted for Southampton that he's managed to get them up.
Listen, it always feels bad asking this sort of question when they're still celebrating on the pitch, but how much hard work and how much change to that squad will it need to keep Southampton in the Premier League? Because we've seen this season, for the 3 that went up, it was really, really tough.
Yeah, I think probably Burnley are a really good example for Southampton for next season, because Burnley played some really great football in the Championship, found it really easy to win games and get themselves out the league, but equally found it extremely difficult, playing with a certain style and playing with a certain way. I don't think there's too dissimilar, so it'll be really interesting to see how Southampton and Russell in particular attacks the Premier League.